I'm a bit surprised at this, where Cam Ward plays the first half for Miami and then doesn't play the second half in the Pop-Tart Bowl. And Shedeur Sanders plays the entire game for Colorado. And people are pissed off about it, that Cam Ward quit on his team. It's okay to be upset that Cam Ward left the game in the second half of this weekend's Pop-Tarts Bowl. But it's not realistic to expect that that decision is going to affect his draft stock in any way. It won't. Not one bit. Teams who like his traits, who need quarterback help, they aren't going to pass on him because he checked out of a December bowl game against Iowa State. He went in and got the touchdown record, and he got it in the first half. And I don't blame him, by the way. He actually played in the first half, threw for 190 yards, 3 touchdowns, and Miami was up 31-28 going into halftime. And he passed Case Keenum as college football's all-time leader in touchdown passes. The record is now at 156, by the way. A lot of people are mad, saying that he quit on his team. Here's the reason I believe many are mad about him checking out. Wagering. The game was close. If this was a blowout, the idea of Ward sitting out would have made common sense to most everyone. If Ward played the entire game, Miami probably wins that game, wins the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Who cares about the winner of that game? Online gamblers. And if you didn't have money on the game and still hate the quitter mentality, if you want to call it that, welcome to the new era of college football. These games don't matter. We are conditioned to believe that. That's nothing new. I know it matters to his teammates. I get it. But they're not going top 10, top 5, with $30 million, $40 million guaranteed coming up his way in April. Carson Beck was injured in a game that mattered. I guess it mattered, the SEC title game. He's now out for a year. So to me, I'm surprised that Cam Ward even played the game. But at least he had the record to go set. He wasn't doing much to impress scouts who were there in person. Fewer and fewer scouts actually attend these games from the NFL now because guys opt out. Cam Ward is not alone in that, except he opted to play in the first half. So I don't blame players for the business decisions this time of year. I'm conditioned to the notion that only college football playoff games matter this time of year. Everyone is told that until ESPN wants to sell me on the most wonderful week of the year, which is also straight business. So I think a legit top 15 player is crazy to play in a game that can't really help his career at this point. It can only hurt it, really. Even though it's not disclosed, NIL financials are definitely playing a factor in why players are opting in, not out right now. Leadership matters. That's partly why he even played in the first place. So does that NIL deal, by the way. But it's still a risk many don't want to take, where the winner goes home with a trophy that you can toast your bread with. Great. They're still upset that they didn't get into the college football playoff. And they played a great game. Cam Ward didn't do anything to disgrace the game. I laughed at that when I saw so many on social media. The game has been like this. Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette were the first big-time picks to opt out like this. What has that done to hurt their careers? Chances are you can't name many others because it's so frequent. Others include Will Levis and Kenny Pickett, by the way. But some players are opting in, not out, which hurts the optics of this with Cam Ward sitting it out on the same weekend that Shedeur Sanders is in. I get it. And that leads us to Shedeur. Insurance policy and all. Dion said that he took out the largest disability insurance policy the sport has ever seen. Same for Travis Hunter. These guys could go number 1 and number 2 in the draft. And they played 4 quarters in a blowout loss. I don't hate it. I mean, I enjoy watching them play. It sends the right message. It's what college football is about. It's the team first. When are we ever talking about that? Team first mentality. We're beyond that, unfortunately. Again, I'm just surprised so many are are upset with Cam Ward. All of those aspects about team first and sitting the right man, all of that can be true, and it can also be incredibly risky, and a big injury would mean it's a stupid decision, especially whenever it's 36-7. And Shedeur Sanders remained in the game. He gets hit for a loss and immediately grabbed the back of his right knee. It was impressive to see him get up and then connect on third and long for a 38-yard gain. But nothing I haven't seen him do before happened in that game. The game was well over at that point. He avoided disaster and ends his college career on the field, not on the sideline. Props. And both he and Travis Hunter left their legacy on the Colorado program. But no matter who played and who didn't, it hasn't and it won't affect NFL evaluations this offseason. And it shouldn't. Why are some NFL players this weekend, this upcoming game day, going to sit out? Because that game doesn't matter for many. They're going to sit either for upcoming surgeries in the offseason because their team sucks and they're out of it. They're going to go ahead and the organization is going to maybe hope that they get a week ahead of rehab. Others are sitting out so they don't get hurt for the playoffs. I wouldn't want to risk what many are doing right now, but they're doing it for NIL. They're getting paid to do it. And Cam Ward set a record and then sat down. But I think, Davey, the point is he actually played in the game. He could have just opted out. And so many are doing that whenever they're in the transfer portal. But it's Cam Ward that everyone's like, oh, quitter. I mean, look at your team right now, any of you, and find out who's quit and who's in the portal. There's plenty of them.
I'm not surprised that Cam Ward decided to play. I did find it surprising that he was like going for the half. That's where I was with this, where if I'm him.
And he hasn't talked about it.
Yeah, I didn't hear anyone say like, hey, this is going to be the plan for Cam going into this game.
They didn't say that. You're right.
And so whenever you're seeing that happen, there's a lot that can be going through someone's mind. Like I saw, just relating this back to a game I saw as a regular season game, but a quarterback got hurt at the end of the first half and you didn't know anything was wrong. And then they come out in the second half and everyone's like, wait, where'd the starting quarterback go? This was a Tennessee versus Mississippi State. And so I wasn't keened into this game when it was happening to where it's like, I didn't know if that was what was taking place. But if I'm Cam Ward and the conversation is this guy could be the number one overall pick in the draft and you're starting for a half, I get you want to go and play with your teammates. So we haven't seen the end of what will happen with this, but I was kind of curious, like, hey, is there like a nagging injury that it was just something that's like, there's no point in risking it here? Or was it just,
I see what you're saying.
I'm having hey, we're going to play a half. That'll be my last hoorah with the guys. And then, you know what, I'm going to shut it down just to be safe.
Yeah. And that's exactly what he did. But for whatever reason, he hasn't talked to the media there since the Syracuse game. So whatever's going on, he played in the first half, got paid.
Yeah.
And set a record, and then set it down. But he played. Everyone's acting like he quit. He could have just not played. And that would be something that's frequent now. So I don't know why everyone's jumping on the Crush Cam campaign.
Yeah, and you bring up the Syracuse game where I would think if I'm Cam, I would not want that to be my last opportunity to play in my Miami uniform for my school. Because that was a tough way to go out. Now, granted, all but one team, as far as at the end of the day, wins it all. So if you are Cam, you at least got to say, hey, I mean, I think they were, 31-28 leading at the half of the Pop-Tarts Bowl. So it's like, you know what, I get to say I at least had one last time with my guys where we went out and we were at least looking like we should have played that last game of the season. And then had you win that, you would have been playing for an ACC championship, and who knows where it goes. But it's hard to get into the mind of these college players, especially nowadays, too, whenever you look at the NIL aspect that's involved. There's just so many factors that play into these decisions, and it's one of those things
where I try. Beck.
Yeah, I try to at least make sure I have as much information as possible before, degrading a guy for their decision or not. I
would just say consider that he actually played. He did.
Yeah.
And where would that score be if he didn't at halftime? I mean, we saw some blowouts.
And
Shedeur played, and it didn't matter.
Yeah, and Cam was missing some of his weapons that set out, too, for a couple. I know Xavier Respetro, I'm probably butchering his last name, but he's going to be one of the wide receivers to go in the draft here this spring.
How about the NFL? The Indianapolis Colts, in a must-win game, they do it again. Another colossal collapse to end playoff hopes for their season. They just allowed the Giants to put up 45 points on them. This is a week after they boat raced the Titans, rushing for a franchise high for most rushing yards in franchise history. The Giants put up 45 points on them, scoring 40 for the first time since 2019. The Giants snapped their franchise worst losing streak. They avoided becoming the first NFL team in history to lose all 9 home games in a single season. And this is a Giants team that had scored 59 points combined in their previous 5 games. But here are the Colts, who allowed nearly 400 yards to a Giants offense that had topped 350 yards twice all year. Drew Lock threw for 304 yards. It's embarrassing. Shane Steichen might get fired. And he said today he controls what he can control. What he hasn't controlled is this is another late season playoffs on the line loss. And those losses have been to the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Giants in recent years. 2 of the 3 have been those franchises. Now, Frank Reich was responsible for the Jags loss, and he was fired early in the next regular season. Pat McAfee lit up his former franchise, the Colts, on X, a tirade where he just trampled them, saying that the season went just like he said it would. Current players who have won nothing during their entire tenures started using me and my face to try to paint me as an enemy in the city I committed my life to. In the biggest moments, everybody with a brain knew they'd crack, and they did. A blind person could see the red flags on this team. Work ethic. Questions there. Never happens on good teams. Preparation, commitment, questions about overall commitment to the organization or just to teammates. Never happens on a good team. Late to meetings. Late to skipping treatment. Never happens on good teams, he wrote. The franchise quarterback, he says, tapped out of a game on 3rd down in the red zone because he was tired. Never happens in the history of the NFL. This team has a culture issue that's an indicator of a loser attitude radiating through the building that was built by greats. He's spot on. And today on the Pat McAfee show, he added commentary to what he wrote on X yesterday.
The only reason why I felt obligated to put this particular message out is because the things that people were saying to me as I was observing and reporting on the Indianapolis Colts as somebody that has been, in the city, obviously, at all the games, like 2 hours before games start, watching everything, how it goes. Because I don't know any of these guys on this team, really. I don't know any of them. No relationship with them. Now, my fault probably, but also whenever Jonathan Taylor did what he did last year to start training camp as our superstar and our best player, and he was just potting with a hoodie on for the first 2.5 weeks of Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson trying to set a brand new culture, a culture that is only existent because all the pillars that are still on the team now earned the team the number 4 overall pick because of how bad they were. Okay, so whenever that whole thing starts, I have to point out the fact, like, hey, this would be a lot easier if you just, didn't do this and kind of set precedent and showcase that this is how it is. Inevitably, it was the right business move. Chris Ballard, Jim Irsay rewarded Jonathan Taylor and that particular action while they're trying to build a brand new culture in there with a new head coach and a new quarterback and everything. And I think from that moment, the way I spoke about it, kind of, hey, that guy is not one of us type thing. Sweet, all good. I actually kind of expected. I understand that completely. But I feel like I was very optimistic about this team for a very long time. And every microphone that I could find, I would talk about the Indianapolis Colts having a way, the Indianapolis Colts having a great team. I would show up at every single game. Shit, I named the stadium. Okay, I mean, that is, and then I'm a part of all their shit, pretty much. All of the Colts stuff. Very much proud of that fact, too. I have a lot of friends in that building, obviously, that have been there a long time. The OGs that I referenced, I would like to see this team get good for them. But the players just, have never won. This group of players has never won here. Haven't won the AFC South in 10 years. Haven't won the AFC. Think about how good the AFC South has been for the last 10 years. great powerhouse.
Yeah.
Tough to win.
One of the best.
But all these guys that are, not all these guys, most of these guys that are on this team have been here for the entirety of it. Chris Ballard, who I think is a good man, okay? He's a very good man, great hair, great accent. He always says, I trust our guys. I trust our guys. He's paid all these guys that have been here for a long time. They still have never won. And then, the whole thing starts happening with me pointing out the tapping out thing of a quarterback on a third down in a red zone in a game that you need to win. And he says, I was tired. That's all. And it's like inside voices don't need to say that. The fact that you think you could say that leads me to believe that you literally have no awareness of any repercussions of anything. There's no accountability anywhere.
He's dead on. And Shane Steichen's on the hot seat because of this. And because he works for Jim Irsay.